Content has a shelf life. So if it takes a couple of hours to write an article or to create a podcast or do a talk show, if you're able to get out a snippet in 20 seconds, it can increase the shelf life and the opportunity to engage users and ultimately drive revenue.
Hey, this is Jesse here, and you're about to hear episode 163 with Mark from Staked AI, which is creating personalized sports content at scale. Guest hosted by Thomas Coyner and recorded in person at last month's Next.io summit in New York City, Mark explains how their cutting-edge AI technology is being applied to different use cases across fan engagement and sports betting. He also talks about the internal strategizing that led them to launching Staked AI as a B2B offering, the impact the product is driving for integrated partners such as wager games, why he believes that Staked AI will be continuously raising capital until its exit, and a whole lot more. Staked AI has quickly established itself as a startup to watch in the space, and I know you'll understand why after hearing this episode. But before we get started, heads up that SBC Americas is just 2 weeks away in its new home of Fort Lauderdale, and Betting Startups is back as a strategic media partner of the event. We'll be hanging out in the startup zone, meeting as many startup founders as we can, so make sure to swing by and say hello. If you still need your ticket for SBC America, check the show notes for a discount code that will get you 50% off your full event pass, and we'll see you there soon. Optimove is the #1 CRM platform for the iGaming industry, and Optimove Ignite Plus is its program to support early-stage iGaming startups. If you're attending SBC Americas in Fort Lauderdale on May 13th to 15th, come visit the Optimove stand to learn more about how Optimove Ignite Plus can accelerate your startup's marketing efforts. You can find Optimove at stand D540 and tell them that Betting Startups sent you to receive your first month free. All right, we are back here on the Betting Startups podcast, and I am joined with Thomas, who sat in as a guest host for this episode. Thomas, you sat down with Mark from Staked AI. You guys sat down together in person at the Next New York City Summit, which was a really great episode, really great discussion that honed in on some pretty advanced AI that him and his team are developing. And you guys explored this one from a few different angles. Can you give the audience just a little bit of a preview of this conversation they're about to hear between you and Mark?
Absolutely. So I think we're all seeing that content is becoming a major piece. We see a lot of things come across our desk at Betting Startups, and a lot of it is through, the visual dimension of videos or graphics, all AI based. And that's awesome. That's definitely going to have a strong importance on building content rapidly. But what Staked AI is, they're leveraging a different dimension, which is audio. It's something that's often overlooked, but yet something just as powerful. And what they're being able to do is to create content instantaneously and through very personalized methods. So big believer in their technology. They have a rapid development process in place. I believe in here they talked about how they launched in December and were already on operators by January. So they know how to build and they know how to move fast. So it's a great episode for sure. And Mark is definitely the guy to steer this entire initiative. His whole theory on why audio works so well for this industry is truly something that's fascinating. And I'm a big believer, and it's a great episode ahead.
Yeah, and I will tease out one aspect of your guys' discussion here for the audience, which is Mark gives a bit of insight into how the product actually works because he captured a little clip from the Starties event, which we co-hosted, of course, during the Next New York City Summit. And I got to say, the AI nailed the summary of the Starties event. It was pretty hilarious. It was awesome and a great showcase what the technology can do. So stick around for that. But for now, thanks again for stepping into the host seat for this one, Thomas. And let's hear your discussion with Mark from Staked AI.
Let's do it. All right, we're here at Next New York Summit. I'm here with Mark Antal, CEO and co-founder of Staked AI. How are you doing today?
Doing great, glad to be here. When I started learning about sports betting and the industry, you guys were one of the first resources I went to. So it's a dream come true.
We're going to talk a lot about your product. It's a really fascinating product.
Yeah, so we're building the Amazon Alexa for sports. The idea is sports is a conversational product, right? You've got folks talking on podcasts like this about sports all day long. There's 2 commentators for every game. And you got fans sitting on the couch talking about sports. And so we want to build the AI infrastructure to break down the wall, which is the television screen or the headphones, to allow fans to join in the media and have that conversation. I'd say the idea behind the product came from 2 experiences that I had. I've called into sports talk radio over 100 times and have never been able to ask my question. And I'm a fantasy football commissioner, and I've been spending a couple hours per week during fantasy football season writing recaps and previews for the league to drive engagement. And My last company in 2019 and 2020, when LLMs were just, back before it was ChatGPT, when it was GPT-3, I started saying to myself, I've got to be able to automate this using this technology. And so there was a breakthrough last September with the quality of the LLMs and the audio models specifically that made my dream of personalized color commentary for fantasy football possible. And so started a company around it, been building a prototype. And so I used our platform to plug in some of my notes from the Starties to create a little 1-minute recap of some of the key events that happened in the awards show.
Yeah, and so I actually want to play it right now. It will give everyone in the audience listening a really good understanding of what your product is. So this is his product, and we'll play it right now.
What an incredible night at the Starties Awards. The energy in that venue was absolutely electric.
I'm so bummed I missed it. Give me the highlights.
3-time Olympic gold medalist LaShawn Merritt dropped some serious wisdom about having a champion's mindset. Focus on the next 10 meters, not just the finish line.
Wow, that's deep. I guess you win the race one step at a time. What else went down?
The Launch of the Year category had some major drama. When PromoFi won but didn't show up, Travis let the crowd decide, and Player Props AI took home the golden tie.
Letting the people decide 8 Mile style. That's wild. How did that end up?
Plot twist. PromoFi appeared out of nowhere. Travis gave golden ties to both companies. Such a classy move.
Both companies had amazing launches. Well deserved. What was the highlight of the night?
Empower Your Play's acceptance speech for Charity Act of the Year was incredible, applying the fun of gaming to charitable giving.
Mission, fun, philanthropy, that's what it's all about. How can people stay updated on the Starties?
Follow the Starties on LinkedIn to catch all the latest community updates. Trust me, you won't want to miss next year's show.
Dude, that's phenomenal. Like the fact that you could get that curated content, that humanized approach, insane technology. I really do love it.
Yeah, so I think through that I was talking about with the audio models is that emotional intelligence, where, if it's a question versus an excited question, one sounds inquisitive versus the other is like, no way, versus no way. And having all of that, be able to apply that at scale while ingesting data from our partners who create content and have users to have it understand the brand voice of any content creator that we're working with and the target audience that they're trying to create for to really, optimize the user experience and also drive key results for our business partners.
I mean, you clearly have the chops and wherewithal for this specific product. Talk me through kind of just the launch of it all, who's on your team, the wrapping around, planting the flag in the industry, your current partnerships. Let's just get a pulse check on where you guys are at.
So the boring part of my career, I spent 10 years in private equity consulting. I was a finance guy. And then in 2019, I met an amazing team at Vault AI, my former company. I was the first business person hired. We had a great AI and machine learning and engineering team out of Israel, and then a team of researchers in Hollywood. The idea there was to use machine learning to displace focus groups in Hollywood. So instead of shooting a pilot episode, showing it to 50 people and then making a multi-million-dollar decision whether to make the television show or not off a very small set of data, we use AI and machine learning to codify the story of the show, data to understand the audience composition, and then machine learning to predict how to market it or the commercial potential. That company, we raised $10 million. I was the pitch guy as the business person. We scaled to a couple million in revenue, and then the writers went on strike. Power to them. Everyone should do what they do to protect their livelihood. But it was time for me to move on after 4 years. So I said, how can I apply this category, this learning, all these learnings that I've had in AI, which I'm really compelled by, to something that I care about, which is sports, right? I wake up in the morning, I check ESPN. Before I go to bed, I see what the final scores were. And so the idea is to codify the storylines of sports, codify the interest of fans, and then rather than predicting, using generative AI to create the experience that each fan would find most compelling. Part of my thesis is I think that predictions are going to become obsolete in the next 5 years, because what generative AI allows us to do is create content in real time. So if you can ask a user what they want and create it in real time, you don't need to guess or infer or model out what it is they're looking for.
Yeah, and what a great transition to my next very focused question of why sports? I mean, clearly this is agnostic. You could take this to education, medical, journalism, politics, but sports is a really cool wedge into it. Tell me why.
So there's a personal reason and a technological reason. The personal reason is it's really hard to start a company, so you have to do it in an area that you love. So I love AI and I love sports. So for me, when I wake up in the morning, I'm already revved up and ready to go because I'm working in the two areas that I love. On the technological side, I believe that the breakthrough that we've had in the emotional intelligence of these audio models is the most powerful breakthrough that we've seen since ChatGPT launched in 2022. And sports is an emotional product, right? All revenue is a derivative of attention, and attention in sports is a derivative of emotion. We pay attention to the games that we have an emotional connection to because of there's a player who went to the same college that we did. You know, my career ended in a knee injury. Anytime there's a player coming back from a knee injury, I tune in and watch that game with a special level of attention. And so if these audio models allow us to not only create an emotional reaction, but understand the user's emotional, disposition and use that to drive engagement in sports, I think that that's much more powerful than, say, call center, AI, where it's not driven by a feeling. It's driven by a very rote set of actions.
Yeah, and to me, just looking at your product and problems you solve, it's also a lot about instantaneous content, being timely, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about the timely matter. We talked about like half times and
Yep.
getting content out there. And, in today's world, you got to go fast.
Yeah, so part of the reason why we're here thinking about sports betting versus going to try to talk to broadcasters is we see right now where the stage that our product is at, we see a lot of value in content that has a short shelf life, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a sports betting affiliate, for example, and you've got an analysis in the morning when the lines come out, thinking about what should we recommend before game day, that content has a shelf life. So if it takes a couple of hours to write an article or to create a podcast or do a talk show, if you're able to get out a snippet in 20 seconds, it can increase the shelf life and the opportunity to engage users and ultimately drive revenue through signups and driving handle to sportsbook partners. So there's the timely component. Obviously, in-game betting is really critical. So we have this vision of any user on DraftKings who we're not working with right now, but a man can dream of everybody getting a push notification at halftime with a personalized 20-second podcast talking about what happened to your bets in the first half, and here are some bets that you might enjoy based on your user history. So it's all about where that time is of the essence. In the future, where we estimate in about 1 year, we'll have a conversational product where there's actually an API that can plug into any application and allow you to talk. So you could log into ESPN and you could talk to it and ask it, here's the start-sit dilemma that I have. And using all of their content from Field Yates, from the whole team at Fantasy Focus, have a real dynamic conversation to get this answer to your specific circumstances in real time, during the 20 minutes you have before game day while you're drinking your coffee, gearing up for the Sunday football.
Yeah, well, my specific use case is I like to do my research on the way home, right? On the drive home. I'll listen to TikToks. Like, I won't watch them in the car, but I'll listen to TikToks about, the evening's slate. So, like, the use cases are far and wide with meeting people where they are and their ability to just take in information.
Yeah.
Truly love it. So, kind of going back to, like, the product itself.
Sure.
Who's your ICP? Like, who's your ideal customer, and who have you partnered with to date, right?
Yeah. ICP are marketers at sports organizations where time is of the essence and they just have an appetite for more content than they have bandwidth to create. So I think there's a lot of AI companies out there that are talking about taking people's jobs away. We view ourselves as a tool to help amplify output for existing teams. AI is only as good as what you put into it. So we're trying to partner with folks that create a ton of content that's really rich and detail-oriented that can be the brain for their specific model, their specific voice that we train to allow them to create snippets of podcast style content that's designed for social that ends up driving engagement to reading the full article. So in terms of traction and who we partner with to date, one that's near and dear to my heart is the Wager Games partnership. We were both members of the Zero Labs Cohort 3 back in October before I had a product. And they stood out to me as amazing founders that had a beautiful vision.
Kelson's incredible.
Yeah, I listened to his pod last week in preparation for this. Shout out Kelson, shout out Ben. And they're bringing TikTok-style user experiences to the sports book. So we're actually creating some content, putting it in Bally's through their integration. And the early results are super validating. Like, as a founder, you have full conviction in what you're doing.
Isn't it fascinating that you go from basically idea to seeing your content in Bally's
Yeah.
in the matter of a couple quarters?
Yeah, we came out of stealth on like December 14th, and on February 13th for Super Bowl Sunday, we had content in a sportsbook. The early results are, in the past month since the Super Bowl, we've been a top 20% affiliate in terms of people actually clicking to place the bet that our audio is talking about, and top 10% in terms of followed accounts. So it tells me the users like it, there's promise in terms of AI audio driving engagement, and it creates B2B value. So super excited about that partnership, and more to come.
More to come. Yeah, that's exciting. So love everything about it. My question is like, you come across as someone that understands the theory behind it, right? You understand like the human emotion, the human connection to communication, to being able to digest information through audio. Like, talk me through the theory behind why this works, if you can.
So every coin has two sides. On one side, there's the fan, where by getting to a point where we are the Amazon Alexa for sports, you allow the fan to steer their conversation towards what they're most interested in.
Yeah.
I love the fantasy footballers, and they're fun to listen to, but only about 5 minutes per hour is relevant to my roster. So there's some days I don't have an hour to listen. So allowing me to steer the conversation towards what value I need to get out of it to try to win my fantasy week is super powerful. The other side of that coin is creating value for our business partners. And talking long-term vision, when you have a conversation with someone, there are AI tools that can measure that person's emotional state. And so that's a whole new layer of metadata where we can go beyond target. Contextual marketing right now is about what else is on the screen in order to make the banner ad relevant in the context of what you're consuming.
Yeah.
We create a vehicle for creating emotional metadata where you can understand, is Mark sad or frustrated that LeBron pulled his groin? And that can help inform the style of marketing content that I'm consuming in that emotional state. So we think that there's multiple layers of paradigm shift here, which ultimately create value not only for the sportsbook and fantasy apps, but also the sponsors, the marketers, to create a new way of engaging users in sports, which has been always the most effective vehicle for mass media, in my view.
Yeah, for sure. And my favorite thing about this is we're clearly, an audio. I mean, we do video podcasts, but we are in the audio space as well as a podcast, the Betting Startups podcast.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm here as a guest host because Jesse is trembling in his boots. He's going to get replaced someday by this. But we have so many struggles with our own automation of this podcast because we talk a lot about sports betting, like we have captions that are like -112. All of these like industry lingo essentially. And no agnostic tool has been kind to us. And so I actually truly love that aspect of it too. It's not only easily digestible sports tech, but it's, specific to the industry. Moving to easily digestible, we have so many founders on here that it's hard to lock in an elevator pitch, right? AI is actually really kind to that because they get you out of your brain, they get you to an easily digestible elevator pitch, right? Like we try to steer everyone towards that mindset. And that's exactly what this product does. It's just such a clear way to get the information to the user. And I do love that. So sticking to that same pulse and that same tune, the last 2 years has been obviously very pivotal to the industry. Before it was big data, now it's big data paired with content.
Yep.
Content. You're seeing so many operators get into the content game, to the likes of Better, all sorts of just explosive content. And it's all about mass eyeballs, ears, right? So you're in the perfect position to help leverage a new spectrum of that. In 5 years from now, where do you see staked AI in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge challenge in the sports industry in particular because there's so much good content that's designed for mass consumption. So for me, the way to stand out is through personalization. And so ultimately, we're a B2B platform. We want to allow every sports media company, every sports betting platform, every fantasy platform to engage their fans on a one-to-one level. And so in 5 years, I'm envisioning that we have an API integration with all of the apps that are on my phone, ESPN, DraftKings, and the podcast, distribution platforms as well, that allow all of those companies to have a one-to-one conversation in real time. And I think that element of personalization creates a relationship. I went to like an AI panel, the LA CTO forum, And there is a gentleman there who runs Stanford's LLM research lab. And he was saying the companies that win in the future of AI are the folks that understand the relationship between the user, the business customer, and the AI platform.
Yeah.
And I think sports is all about relationships, right? You know, I thought I was a Patriots fan, and then Tom Brady went to the Buccaneers. And I realized I felt a relationship to the player, the human, more so than the brand of the Patriots. So yeah, envision ourselves as being a primary component of the user experience.
Yeah, personalized user experience.
Yep.
Okay, so sports in America really was founded on listening to sports. So I think there's just like in that DNA that people still want to listen to sports. I think the personification, local radio guys, local broadcasters has transformed into the personification of digesting sports on TikTok, on Instagram from local influencers. So the more you can embrace like that personalized, localized like type mindset, and you've talked a lot about being able to soon replicate individual voices.
Yeah.
Can you go into that?
Yeah, sure. So I think the reason why audio resonates so much is you can hear authenticity. You can hear it in someone's voice that they are feeling the pain of the Browns, you know, not having a good quarterback for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so that authenticity comes through. So for us, what does that mean? Number one, we're training our models to pronounce every player's names correctly.
Brilliant,
So if you refer to the best three-point shooter of all time as Stephen Curry,
you're gonna get kicked away.
Yeah, which is like literally, that was like an aha moment for me. Like I was reading a text-to-speech article and it pronounced Stephen Curry, Stephen Curry.
Yeah.
So like we're training them to pronounce player names correctly, using your example of sports betting like minus 112, right? Like if you pronounce that minus 112,
Exactly.
that's not how we communicate as fans. So when I say that our audio models speak the language of fans, that's what we're doing. We're training it to be authentic and real. The second thing is, like you mentioned, in our roadmap is training the model on cloning media people's voices through partnership. But it's not just about the voice. It's about training the model on all of the content that they've created, right? So you think about like a Stephen A. Smith. He has so much content that he's released over the years, and we can train our model to understand his vantage point, you know, on the Knicks, for example. And then when new content comes out, that then feeds the model to understand his perspective in this acute moment on these acute topics. And then every fan that wants to call in to his show on, I think it's Sirius XM, you know, doesn't right now, not all of them get answered. And so the idea is to scale that relationship, that connection on the one-to-one level, not only through the output of the voice, but also through the mind and the perspective and the vantage point of the content creator.
So how does Staked AI actually create like this personalized learning model for each individual creator?
Yeah, when we start working with somebody during onboarding, we codify, we call them their brand guidelines, like what's the style that they communicate in? Are they analytical or vibes-based, for example? What's their business model? And the system is trained to use that understanding of brand and business model to be authentic in the voice of that client and push towards something that engages the user, but also yields a high-value business outcome. We're on the verge of externalizing our platform so that clients will be able to log in and create their own content using our technology. And when they're doing so, any edits that they make get saved, and the system gets trained on those edits and learns if they've got a specific slogan, if they've got a specific sentence structure that they tend to utilize. It learns their brand voice, and then over time gets closer and closer and closer to you know, adopting that brand voice, you know, from the jump.
Yeah, brilliant. So for example, if Jesse were to bring in betting startups, they would quickly learn that you have to add an A after every couple of sentences, right? Because he is Canadian.
Yep. And you know, another thing that's on the horizon for us is a massive voice library. So we'd actually be able to choose a voice inspired by voice actors in Vancouver.
Yeah, that's sweet. That's sick.
Part of the personalization.
All right, a lot of juice right there. How are you going to build this? I know you have a great team in place. How are you going to leverage it, right? Are you going to go look for, you know, additional capital to leverage this opportunity, hire? Talk me through your strategy and execution.
Yeah, so first thing, team. I'm fortunate to have Chris Shreeve as my co-founder. You know, he's a thought leader in the space, and he's the real brains of how to bring this to market. I wanted to build a direct-to-consumer product, and he was like, this is B2B. And so fortunate to have gone through sort of a crawl, walk, run with him, starting as an advisor, then rolling his sleeves up as a consultant, and then diving in the deep end full-time as a co-founder. we're an AI company, so we're always going to be raising capital until we have our exit. So we've raised friends and family thus far. Right now it's March 2025. We're just making the leap into angel round and then starting to build relationships with institutional VC. So there's a portion of my day every day that's dedicated to fundraising and nurturing those relationships. But it's in terms of execution, it's all about phases, right? I view building a company like a domino effect. And so, the first domino right now is playing to our strength, which is we can create content really fast. Yeah. So that's why we're targeting time-sensitive content that has a short half-life, like game day content. As we scale, then it's about personalization. Partnering with folks who have deep user data that we can integrate into their data lakes and understand based on a user's behavior what's going to be most engaging for them. And then finally, the third phase is conversational. So we've got a really talented team of engineers that we're working with externally. I think the next step for us is bringing that development skills in-house. So I also have a portion of every day that's dedicated to talent and networking on that side of things. And that's part of what the capital is going to unlock.
B2B is hard. We all know this. Getting on people's roadmaps, incredibly difficult on their calendars. It takes a team. It takes a right team to do so. You mentioned that you have a couple advisors that you brought on recently. Talk me through that.
Yeah, so one of my takeaways from Zero Labs was, Quentin said it can take 2 years to integrate with a sportsbook. The only way to cut the line is to have a board member or an advisor who can walk into any room on short notice. So we're really fortunate. We just took the leap from family and friends investors to angel investors, and we've brought on 2 as both investors and advisors. The first is Eric Fernandez, who ran sports sponsorships at AT&T for 15 years. So he's super plugged into, especially the college sports world.
I've never heard of AT&T.
And then the second is Andrew Bimson, who was the COO of Sportradar for a number of years. He's actually walking around here today. Not only do they have a lot of wisdom that we've already benefited from in the couple of weeks that we've been working together, but also relationships and being able to get an audience with big companies, while we're still in the prototype phase, for example. It's all about team, it's all about who you're working with, and we're really fortunate to have those 2 on board.
Just how fast you executed on going from idea to seeing content in apps and bringing in the right people. This isn't a slow burn. You guys are going fast.
My worst fear is indecision.
Yeah.
I've had opportunities in my career that have passed me by because we thought about it too much.
Yeah.
So I'd much rather make the wrong decision and learn from it than have missed the chance in the first place.
Love it. That's a great approach. How can everybody get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Mark Antal. Chris Shreeve, also give him a follow if you don't already, although I'm sure 90% of the people listening follow him. You can email me at mark@staked-ai.com. And, would love to chat about not only just voice AI, but we also have built an AI first operation. So we use AI across all facets of the business. So if anyone wants to talk shop on how to scale productivity of as company builders, I love going deep on that stuff too.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to throw some rapid fire questions your way. All right, so you wake up in the morning. What's the first app you open?
ESPN.
ESPN.
Yeah, I gotta know how the Cavs are doing. Is the win streak continuing? And what's LeBron up to?
And hopefully soon they'll be able to press a button and it could just be read to you while you're still in bed.
One of those Apple shortcuts.
Eyes half open, right? Just get Staked AI to feed you what's happening.
Absolutely.
Great. So we go out tonight, New York City, karaoke. What's the song you put on?
Gangster's Paradise.
Okay.
The first cassette tape I ever bought on a road trip to Yellowstone National Park.
Yeah, don't date yourself too hard, but
we're on video. I've got some grays in my beard. They know.
No, I'm just messing with you. Dude, incredible play. All right, so last one. If you could be anybody in the world for a day, dead or alive, whoever it is, who would you want to be and why?
I mean, I'm a Clevelander. LeBron comes to mind, but I think that's too easy of an answer. I think Adam Silver. Yeah. If there's anyone in sports that I could have dinner with, it'd be Adam Silver. I think the way that he's approached player empowerment and building a global brand is brilliant. Adam Silver.
Dude, let's go over across. Their headquarters is just across the river, the Hudson, right now. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm working the room. I'm 1 degree of separation away.
Yeah. Awesome, brother. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
The Betting Startups podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 4 out of the top 5 US operators personalize player experiences with Optimove. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/betting startups. And if you like what you see, you'll get your first month free.